Well, I did not think that I'd be making this video so quickly. I thought that we would have some time before the discourse all of a sudden took the turn towards trans importance in the electorate. So that's where we're at, guys. Apparently, you have a few people going on mainstream sources, and they are pontificating on what lost the Democrats the election. Well, guess what? Guess what their answer was? Trans issues. Apparently, that's where they're hedging their bets with this one, where they're just like, yeah, if we weren't so woke and we didn't just play into the culture wars and we actually met them in the middle, and this guy was just like, yeah, we didn't hedge our bets with the trans thing, and then you have guys that are just like, yeah, well, it is an issue, and we kind of you could tell that it's like that's the one thing that they're like, yeah, I'm liberal for everything except that. Again, none of these guys can just go with the live and let live, and none of that kind of narrative. No, not at all. We need to denigrate them some more, and now we're going to scapegoat them for losing us the election, apparently. Yeah, that's fun. So, Krystal and Saagar on Breaking Points apparently debated this. I have not watched it yet, so we're going to go in fresh. But real quick, I did just want to address this, where the trans issue in sports is something that, like any right-winger, they think that it's the gotcha in any debate, where it's just like, well, what do you think about this? And I have had a few debates in my life where I have given my takes, where I consider myself pretty sensible with it, where honestly I think it needs to be all performance based, where it's just like, yeah, performance evaluations. Like I have to do this for my hockey teams. Like every year we have to go through performance evaluations to kind of set up the leagues based on, talent and skill and all that kind of stuff. So, those need to be instituted a little bit harder. Obviously, if they're all on the same performance basis, I don't even see why we can't just have more co-ed sports. As far as, again, if they're all meeting on the same performance line. But then again, this is hockey. It is a little bit of a different sport, and this is no contact hockey. So, any no contact hockey, yeah, even the most strict ref will allow some. So, but yeah, I don't have a lot invested in it. I don't bet. I'm not a sports bettor. I really don't care, to be completely honest. But apparently that's a hill that a lot of people are just willing to die on, is they want to protect the world for their daughters, to make sure that they can play volleyball against somebody that, was not, that is, trans. Sorry, I almost said it in a way that they would have framed it, but even I can't get that, because I'm just like, their framing sucks so hard that it's just, I don't even want to repeat it. But yeah, this debate happening so fast after the election really did kind of get to me, where I'm like, oh, so we are scapegoating them. We're going, because first it was immigrants. They were the first victims to fall prey to the DNC's wrath, where it's just, well, maybe it was the immigrants abandoning us. Then the working class was the next victims, and now they're going for the culture war. So let's take a look at this debate and see just what they had to say. Music, go away.
There's been a lot of discussion about some of the issues that swung people to Donald Trump. Obviously, the economy and immigration are there, but some interesting new analysis says that also it could be cultural issues, specifically transgender issues, that had a major impact on swing voters. So we had a clip here from CNN we wanted to play that kind of highlights this fight within both elite media and elsewhere, and how the issue may be talked about now.
Because we know that the ones that really have their thumb on the pulse of trans issues is CNN.
On the future, let's take a listen.
I think there are a lot of families out there who don't believe boys should play girls' sports.
They're not boys. I'm not going to listen to transphobia at this table. I am not going to listen.
Here we go. See?
You call a trans girl a boy.
Are you going to allow me to finish my explanation?
When you use a word that's a slur, I'm going to interrupt. That's not how it is. They're not boys. They're not boys. They're not playing girls softball. I'm not going to sit there.
No, start calling him a lady. At this point, if they're so freaking They want to be so callous. Oh, what do you mean? It's just I'm just being ignorant about it. Fine, be ignorant back towards them and just call them whatever the opposite gender is, because you know it's going to piss them off.
Let's reset for a second, because look, this is a really heated issue, right? And Sharmichael, I know you. I know that you understand that people have different views on this. I think out of respect for Jay, like, let's try to talk about this in a way that is respectful.
Okay, so let me rephrase this since I'm being targeted here.
I don't hear that,
no,
just
it's
to be
okay.
clear.
No. And honestly, I'm kind of sick of that narrative. Like, no, fuck him, shame on him, he sucks.
You are not being
But
targeted.
I am. But it's
No, you're not. You're not.
I'm specifically saying that I know that you are not intending to be transphobic.
He should know that I'm not. But he wants to say
The way you're framing it is transphobic. If the transphobic shoe fits, come on there, Cinderella.
Transphobic. I'm saying you're using a phrase.
How you like that, buddy?
So the way regular people interpret it,
that's not regular people. That's not regular people. There's no consensus that these are actually boys. This whole thing about trans girls is a canard. We're talking about a tiny sliver of the population.
Yeah, it's like 7%.
Maybe
We're using that.
But my point in terms of its effectiveness.
Just get to your point.
My point in terms of its effectiveness. Regular people with children look at these things and they say, you know what? This is a bit too far. I do not agree with this. I don't like this. I think Democrats are going.
Yeah, it's called closed-mindedness, and honestly, you're doing the thing where you're just like, well, I don't want this to come into my home, and honestly, that's where I hope karma definitely bites you in the ass with whatever kid you have. I hope that they figure out their identity and then you have to deal with that.
Going way too much to the left on social issues. They're uncomfortable with it. A lot of people believe that. A lot of families believe that. You may disagree with that reality, but that's why Republicans kept running those ads over and over and
This is why I don't want kids.
over again.
Shit.
Because they saw the metrics suggested
and
that they were working.
What is that about having children
and
where
using rhetoric like you just used, saying this is boys playing girls sports. First of all, we're talking about 5 people in the entire country.
You would prefer?
We're talking about trans girls being allowed to play with the people who are in their gender. And if you don't believe, you don't have to listen to me. Listen to the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association.
The American Medical Association.
All right.
No, and that's actually kind of pointing out how backwards he still is and how I have a feeling how backwards Saagar is.
So preview of what Culture War 2.0 looks like now that this has happened. Let's put this up there on the screen. This is really the genesis, I think, of why this is even worth discussing. So this is from Blueprint, and this is, we've used some of their polling and stuff before.
Yes, because we can definitely trust polling still post this election, guys. Let's remember exactly how accurate this is to our situation, only because it definitely doesn't fit Saagar's preconceived notions on what he's talking about.
And they show the different issues that have animated different types of voters. So, for example, if you look, reason to not choose Kamala Harris. The #1 issue for all voters was inflation was too high under the Biden administration. #2 was too many immigrants illegally crossed the border under Biden and Harris. So that makes sense. But actually, along the swing voters, this was, honestly, I was shocked by this. It says all swing voters, but specifically all swing voters who chose Trump. It said Kamala Harris is more focused on cultural issues like transgender issues rather than helping the middle.
It's funny? You're putting way too much emphasis on the fact that not enough people showed up for Kamala. It's not the people who swapped that won him that election. I'm sorry. It's like you look at the turnout, his turnout was pretty much neck and neck with 2020. It's the fact that 10 million people decided to stay home and not even vote this time.
Middle class. That was a plus.
I'm sorry. I know you guys want to do this thing where, oh, look at Trump. He stomped against. It's because all these ideas and these culture wars ideas are so unpopular. We must stop them right at the beginning.
28 score on Blueprint. Now, look, let's be clear. People are not always the best in terms of why they vote. And I'm the most consistent messenger on that. So I'm not going to say that this is the #1 reason. But I mean, I do think this is a vindication, at least somewhat, of that ad, the they-them ad that they blanketed the entire state of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin for, considering the margin and also considering that we have some of this data here and also even some of the reaction within the Democratic Party. So I'm curious what you think.
So I think that this type of analysis, which I have myself engaged in, which is basically like, let's focus group and poll test and get the voters to tell us in this paint by numbers way what we should believe in, I think it is worse than worthless. I think if you look at the campaign that the Kamala Harris team ran, actually put that chart back up on the screen. They basically ran the campaign designed, custom, like platonic ideal of the campaign that would be designed to try to deal with these exact poll numbers. Yep. Inflation was too high. Okay, let me talk about my price gouging plan. Let me say I feel your pain. Too many immigrants illegally cross the border. Okay, don't worry. I'm hawkish on the border now. Those other things I said in the past, like forget all about that. Actually, I really am like more aggressive and hawkish on the border than Donald Trump is. Transgender, too focused on cultural issues like transgender issues rather than helping the middle class. I am not even going to say the word transgender in my entire campaign.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
I mean, not that I remember, maybe once, but not that I recall, okay? It was certainly
Walls did.
not, I'm not going to talk about my
He was
race.
the one.
I'm not going to talk about my gender. I'm going to run around the country with Liz Cheney and try to persuade you that actually I'm just like basically a Republican. The only way I'm different from Biden is I'm actually further to the right. I'm going to put Republicans in my cabinet. Like, this is the campaign that Democrats ran. And it was an objective, clear-cut, demonstrable failure. Because as much as I would like politics to actually work this way, because I have a bunch of poll numbers I could put up there about how popular Medicare for All is and how popular minimum wage is and how popular unions are, blah, 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 blah. If that was the way politics actually worked, Kamala Harris would be headed to the White House
she
right
would've
now.
won.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Donald Trump ran around talking about Arnold Palmer's dick. The idea Democrats are the two divisive ones? Are you kidding me?
Dude,
Trump is
literally his last campaign speech. He was throating his microphone while also he was doing like the full service. Like, come on.
the most divisive figure in modern American politics. The lesson is not to be
I mean, let's be fair, because he was just miming what he's going to be doing for Putin and Kim Jong-il and or Kim Jong-un.
less divisive. The lesson is actually to be more divisive, but around the correct lines.
Sorry, Donnie, I can't hear you with Putin's dick in your mouth.
So what is Trump's division? And what does he feed? The division and the world view that he feeds into, the narrative that he feeds into with everything he does, the litmus test for being part of Donald Trump's party is the problems in your lives are because of immigrants, Democrats, cultural elites.
Yeah, except that's not even what won him the election. Again, what lost the Dems the election? Because again, I keep saying this. He didn't really win the election as much as the Democrats lost it, where they did not even give a crap about the working class. Chuck Schumer's whole comment about just, well, for every worker we lose, we gain a suburban woman. Yeah, Yeah, not to blame at all, but let's keep up with the media spin that somehow trans rights had more to do with this than something like that.
I will fix it, right? Those are the litmus tests within the Republican Party. That is the worldview. It's one I disagree with. I've talked a lot about it, but that is the worldview and is very clear-cut worldview. So when you're talking about things like, transgender issues, that fits into this idea from him. Cultural elites are trying to change you, indoctrinate your kids, take over your life, preach to you about what your values should be. When we're talking about the border, when we're talking about immigrants, these immigrants are going to come into your town, they're going to steal your jobs, they're going to drive up housing. Again, I think all of this is incorrect.
Right back to that.
But it's clear cut, right? It is clear cut, and it is extremely divisive. So the problem is not that Democrats were talking about, I don't even remember the last time Democrats talked about transgender issues at all.
None.
And it's not.
No, it's all the Republicans. It's all the Republicans saying that this is the main issue. It's literally the Fox News coalition there. Like, honestly, it's kind of funny when you go back and you realize that a lot of independent voters watch Fox News. You kind of get that with this.
The Democrats were too far right or too far left or whatever. The problem is they have no narrative.
Yeah, none.
They do not have a divisive politics, at least not one that actually works.
Yeah,
this is where Bernie Sanders was on the money. Okay,
Yeah.
Occupy Wall Street. What's the division there? The 99 versus the 1. Bernie Sanders, what's the division? The people broadly versus the millionaires and the billionaires. That's what they need. And so, the guy who was like arguing with Michael on there, who I'm not really familiar with.
Jay Michaels.
The part that he said that was the most important and that should be coming out of Democrats' mouths when they're being pressed on, transgender athletes or whatever, is he said, this is a canard. And that's the important point. How does the 5 transgender athletes in the country, how does that impact you, your ability to have a good life, earn a good wage, etc.? It's a distraction. It's a distraction from billionaire elites who want another tax cut, or, Elon Musk's case, want another government subsidy, taxpayer subsidized contract. That is what Democrats should be leaning into. They shouldn't be running away from it. They need their own.
Who is she talking to? Saagar's on this side. Well, this side for you guys.
Divisive politics, and they need to throw out this focus group, poll tested bullshit, because the paint by numbers way of let me just poll test my way into what I think is a popular program, utter and complete rejected failure.
So I don't think that any of that is necessarily wrong in terms of the focus group, but I do think it is clear.
God, this fucking dork.
That there is a reality problem the Democrats face. So what you were saying in terms of, Kamala didn't run on it. It's but in 2019, she literally did say you should tax her dollars to, have gender transition surgery for illegal immigrants. That's objectively an insane thing to believe. These people ran around all throughout
Trump
the 2019.
Did it during his administration too, by the way.
Yeah, okay, well, I hope he bans it, right.
I hope he bans it, but it's something that he totally did. So it's kind of weird that, the fact that it had to be said in a way that made you go, ick, ew, ew, I don't want my money going towards that because it's, number one, illegal. They're an illegal immigrant? What do you mean? It's almost I did hear somebody on the left talk about this specifically, and they were more mad that it was easier for a incarcerated person to transition than it was for them.
Right now, and by the way, it looks like that's going to be a day one agenda. And so, if anything, he's too much an idiot not to follow through. So that's something. But really, and also that was Kamala's response. It didn't work. People get tagged because of the cultural milieu. You cannot run. For example, in 2022, if Republicans did not say the word abortion, would that not mean that they still get tagged, and rightfully so, with the issue of abortion? Democrats basically completely changed their views on gender after Obergefell and tried to shove it down the mouths of American citizens. Dominated cultural elites have tried to normalize this transgender ideology, legalize it in terms of plugging little children full of castration drugs and puberty blockers.
Wow, he really is an asshole.
And then they say that it's a canard. It's not a canard.
Sucks.
Thousands of children actually have been chemically castrated in this country. That is
what the actual fuck, guy? Dude, okay. See, this is the stuff that really gets to me because, the way he's framing that is completely disingenuous. Chemical castration. Again, you're lamenting this father who lost his son, and now they have a daughter that they don't even want anymore because they'll never acknowledge that they have a daughter because they're dead to them. That, you're more okay with that line of thinking than just going, oh, okay, it's whatever they want, but it's chemical castration.
Crazy. Now, is it the number one issue? No, but clearly a lot of people are.
Says nothing about, the whole snip when you're born. Nothing about that.
Very concerned about it, and I think at this point, there is a bit of a mandate on the issue because it's one of those where it gets to the fact that multiracial groups, men, women, young, etc., do feel
this motherfucker look at a dad's root beer and just went, I want that.
As if
I want that aesthetic. Give me that.
These issues have the more of an importance in the Democratic mind. And what I would mean by that is, I remember I had this big fight with some progressive on Rising back in 2019. And I was like, look, simple question. Could you ever support Medicare for all if it didn't include transgender surgeries? And they wouldn't answer the question. And I think that says the whole ballgame. Could you ever support Medicare for all if it did not cover abortion? That's, again, the same thing. So if that's true for you, then you don't support, or...
Well, it's not technically Medicare for all then. It's Medicare for some, except for the people that I deem worthy or unworthy.
Then you do think cultural issues are the most important. If you would deny healthcare,
No! You do! No! That's fucked up, and I hate how they get to frame that because legit, you're the one who's focusing on it. You're the one bringing it up so much. You're the one who's obsessed with it, not the left. We just established that we have barely heard about this from the Democratic Party. It's on your mind. You're the one who's literally thinking about trans people all the time. Not weird at all.
99.9% or whatever the U.S. population, and put it at risk because it doesn't.
Thus, you just admitting that that's very, very tiny fraction of the population that even gives a shit about this.
Support gender transition surgery or abortion. It's like, well, then you do care more about the cultural issue than you do the so-called economic issue.
But you're actually, in a sense, making my point, because I do think that should be flipped. So I think the litmus test in the Democratic Party should be things like billionaires should not exist. We should tax the rich more, right? They should be clear, like...
I'm sorry, if I was engaging with somebody like this and they were just constantly looking off and never making eye contact with me, I would have a problem with that, just because that's how I kind of engage with people.
Economic, populist, class war. Those should be the litmus test. And then outside of that, there should be a lot more flexibility.
But there is none. There's zero.
Saagar, I'm not talking about what is.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
I think they got in an argument or something right before they went on air. Or I'm thinking breaking points might not be long for this world.
Critiquing what is.
Yeah.
I'm saying it is the opposite of what it should be. Because instead, we're going to be the coalition of Dick Cheney and Mark Cuban and Taylor Swift and Bernie Sanders. And that doesn't make any goddamn sense, okay? Nope. That is not there is no division in there that makes any kind of rational or election.
No, but let's just acknowledge it for what it was. We had, 5 months to even put this together. So it was kind of like just throw everything at the wall, see what sticks. And it just so happened that, Taylor Swift and,
electoral sense. So on the...
But the Dick Cheney one, come on, that shit, that hit the wall, but it...
Specific question of transgender issues. A couple things I would point to.
Sorry.
Number one, in states where those they-them ads ran, and they were head-to-head, these are the battleground states where the campaigns were spending all of their money, and Kamala was running this actually pretty good class, Trump's a billionaire, doesn't look out for you message. She narrowed the gap significantly. She outperformed in those states where the they-them ads were being run.
Let's take that with a grain of salt.
Versus the rest of the country. So there's that. And the other piece is, Democrats ran around this whole country this whole year castigating college students as too woke and too out of touch, et cetera. I just am not sure that there's any more to be gained from that sense of politics. Because ultimately, there's always going to be some pink-haired college kid out there who's saying, they're introducing themselves with their pronouns and doing a land acknowledgement to be like, see, the wokeism got them. Again, Kamala ran the platonic ideal of the campaign that, the popular
pronoun game. Why does it matter so much to these people? They can't just be like, oh, my pronoun is he, him, or my pronoun's American patriot.
Who say just avoid this stuff altogether, that they would suggest. I've been saying the same thing on immigration. I think it was a dramatic political and moral, but political failure for them to just cede the ground to the Republican worldview and say, you know what, you're right about everything. Immigrants actually are bad. Because guess what? If that's the worldview, Republicans are going to win every single time. If the worldview is actually transgender, issues are the number one issue, and cultural elites are trying to trans your little boy. If you accept that framing, guess what? Republicans are going to win.
Sorry, that's a funny way of saying that. They're going to trans me
every single time. How about instead saying, you know what? Just like it shouldn't be the state telling women what they can do with their bodies, it shouldn't be the state telling transgender people what they can do with their bodies.
What about
either.
Children? No, but the children is the main question, and that's
families, doctors.
It's literally up to the families and the doctors, dude. You have this weird narrative that these kids are going to school and they're making the decision at school, and then they don't tell their parents. You have a very, very weird obsession with that, and honestly, it's kind of creepy.
Nobody out there is
issues.
Saying that
I don't think that Donald Trump. Yes, they are.
Maybe Matt Walsh and a few fringe characters.
But even Trump now, one of his first executive orders he says he's going to sign is making sure that all federal government forms just reflect male, female, and it's your biological sex. What I'm saying is that's not just about kids. That's about saying basically the message there, and I don't think it's like all that important, but the message there is that trans people are not real. They don't exist.
No, it's that your biological sex is assigned at birth. Transgender people, what do the trans people...
Oh, he's so fucking gross.
What do the trans propagandists always tell us? Transgender people have existed forever. Well, you existed whenever the male-female form was on there. Is it so important for you to have a form that says,
Saagar, I just
like,
said
two-spirit
it's
or
not...
whatever?
No, Saagar, again, like, you would get pissed off if the only thing that you could say was that you're female and that you're Miss Saagar Andretti.
Actually, that...
They're the crazy
Saagarette.
people.
It's not that
Saagarette.
critical of an issue. There should be flexibility on it within the Democratic
smoke a
coalition.
cigarette.
But what I will not abide is people like, Seth Moulton and Tom Suozzi, who came out immediately were like, actually, I'm on the side of the Republicans when it comes to, who just, their immediate instinct is to throw transgender people under the bus. Now think of how convenient
Tom Suozzi
that is
sucks. That's
for
the guy I was
Nancy
talking about.
Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris herself, the entire Democratic consultant grift complex. Think of how convenient that is. It does not hurt a single donor to throw transgender people under the bus. It does not hurt a single Democratic elite. They've been throwing transgender people under the bus for years now at this point. Does not hurt them one bit at all. So listen, I am all open to having more. I don't think we should be doing the word policing. I think there should be more flexibility on cultural issues. I think the litmus test should be around economic populism. That's where the divide belongs.
Actually,
But no.
Preach.
If your first reaction is to throw some of the most powerless people in the country under the bus, you have no spine, no character, and you are running cover for the current status quo of the Democratic Party, and nothing will ever change.
See, I just disagree with that completely. I mean, the idea that trans people are the least powerful, I mean, they're the most powerful.
Are you kidding me?
What? Man, this guy lives in a really weird reality.
Our politics for years. I mean, these people are
Not
forcing
true. I
their
mean,
friends.
Honestly, this guy walks out and he's got a bunch of, like rainbow parades happening outside his house, apparently, and a bunch of BDSM, gay and trans people are just all around him all the time.
Ideology on all of us.
Saagar,
That's tyranny.
look at their income. Look at their health outcomes. Look at their life expectancy. Look at their suicide rates. Like, that's a preposterous view of the world.
First of all,
It's like you're literally contributing to it with what you're saying right now. You are contributing to it. You are a media figure. So if anybody's like, if somebody trans in my audience is watching this and is really pissed off, which I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that they are, which obviously, Saagar really does suck, but it's just so weird that he cannot see like how dehumanizing it is, and also how he would react if somebody was doing this to him.
a lot of those
Or her, sorry. You know what? No, her.
stats around that population.
I'm sorry if misgendering is a triggering thing for you, but I'm going to misgender Saagar because she deserves it.
Changes because the population has dramatically increased, and there's quite a lot of people who are either autistic or mentally ill who are somehow convinced that they're trans. So that's number one. So actually, I'm very curious to see how the rates go whenever we actually get this stuff.
Dude, you ever hear something that immediately made you so angry that it just all the joking just went out the window with me? Except for, calling her out on her bullshit.
Out of schools. My prediction, it'll be just like anorexia. It'll be a social contagion phenomenon. It's going to plunge, which means it was all bullshit and fake in the first place. But second,
what the hell is with this guy? He's a double down on chauvinism too?
Is that if you look at this whole, this transgender people under the bus, I mean, it's the same thing. It's like, is it really, quote unquote, throwing people under the bus?
Guys, just remember, these are the people that really, if you can, how they say, punch a Nazi? Well,
say that you biologically, however sex you're born in, that's the league of sports that you have to play. How is that throwing people under the bus?
Because you know what, putting how you feel about the issue aside, because this is my point. I don't give a shit about the issue. I genuinely don't. I don't think it's important at all, which is why
Again, I actually unironically did kind of give the answer to this, where it's just performance evaluations. It's all based on performance evaluations.
You are making that your main
and everything else goes co-ed.
Analysis of what went wrong here for Democrats.
If you're that worried about it.
It is wildly dishonest and lacking in any sort of courage or moral character. So Seth Moulton put out his little statement, and one of his staff...
This little roll of the eyes. Yeah, dude, morally, you suck. morally, you're just you're not just you're a dipshit and a douchebag.
I think we have it. B7, please. We'll put it on the screen.
And you know what? That staffer is correct to resign, not because of the specific position that he took. They're correct to resign because it displays such a lack of courage and
all right. Comments about transgender people made by a Massachusetts congressman have prompted condemnation from his own party, including resignation from the top aide. Seth Moulton, 6th District, spoke with New York Times in a lengthy story about Kamala Harris's loss. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so literally
character to go to the easiest, target here.
Sorry about that.
Who has no defense against you. You don't have a word to say about Jamie Harrison. You don't have a word to say about the $2 billion that are now lining the pockets of the consultant grift complex. You don't have anything to say about that. So that's why I find this despicable. It's not even about the issue. I don't give a shit about that issue. That's what Democrats should be saying. That's what they should be saying. But it has to be a part. So I'm not even saying that transition had nothing to do with this because Trump had a coherent frame. And transgender issues and the border and all of these other things that was part of the frame. Kamala Harris and the Democrats have a laundry list of issues that no one remembers and no one gives a shit about because they don't believe they're actually going to do anything with regard to those issues. They need a divisive politics. They need to be more aggressive in fighting and laying out their worldview. Because if you're constantly just capitulating to the Republican worldview, guess what? People are going to vote for Republicans. If you are not credible, that you are going to...
Or here's the other crazy thing that we might do. We might not show up.
Go after the economic elites who are actually responsible for so much of the pain and the misery of this country. Then, they're going to vote for the side that actually does have a narrative. So that's why I say, just to go back to the original chart we put up on the screen, I am someone who, I have been that person who's been like, guys, look at how popular progressive policy issues are. You just need to talk about Medicare for all. You just need to talk about these things. And that is not enough. It has to fit into a clear, credible narrative with heroes and villains. And that is where the real problem is. It's not some people said woke stuff back in 2020. We should have tacked a little bit this way on that issue or whatever. No. You are lacking a story that makes any goddamn sense to anyone in this country. That's what has to be fixed.
I think I understand a bit better.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. In terms of if you're going to say this as just respect to, it would be like if the Republicans lost and they're like, oh, well, Trump is the only reason that we lost. And I'm like, well, I think abortion would have been a pretty big one. It would be like the idea of trying to preserve unpopular parts of a coalition without blaming any of the people who are really responsible. So I do understand it. I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, gee, it's like that almost dismantles your entire argument. Weird.
Because I'm not sure if any of this exists within the party, which is a good segue to the next part about Bernie Sanders versus Nancy Pelosi.
It doesn't.
For right now, I don't see a single... Well, the other problem is, before we even get to the whole Bernie thing, one of the things Matt Karp keeps talking about is that, Democrats performed, better with households over 100K as opposed to households under 100K that voted for Trump. Then the truth is that...
Yeah, you abandoned the fucking working class. Shocker!
People who make over 100K are predominantly well-educated and have more far left to views on immigration, transition. In fact, they think those are the most important stuff. And they don't want to hear nothing about, taxation or any of that. And so that actually might be one of the bigger coalitional fights.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. If Democrats are going to win again, they have to go to war with their donor base. And we all know how likely that is to happen.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate because that is just kind of forcing our hands into being like, well, now you're creating a more progressive wing. If you guys were so hard up for a third party, creating the purple party with the corporate Dems and the corporate libs, then okay, cool. But don't be surprised that, then the Democratic Party is going to leave you behind and move farther left just the way that MAGA did. The thing is, these next 4 years, I hate to say this because it does kind of suck to even hear this come out of my mouth, but we need to MAGA a little bit. We need to definitely blue MAGA, and I'm not talking in the worst ways. I'm talking specifically get behind the party and then build it to what we want and see and get the results of what we want. I hate the fact that we're even in this position, but as I said at the beginning of this video, I hate the fact I even had to make this video today because holy crap, I did not have that on this week's bingo card of post-election breakdowns. Was this is the trans issue. I still hold that. Can I use the R word? Because oh man, I want to use it for Saagar so bad. Like that guy, what an idiot. Krystal, you know what? Did a great job. I actually think that she made some really, really good points. Yeah, I mean, it's one of my buddies who is into like the Tim Pool sphere of like the internet. So like we know of each other's media consumption. And at one point we were talking about Krystal, Kyle, and friends, and he was like, "Is that the one with the trans girl?" I was like, "What? Who?" He's like, "Krystal, she's trans, right?" I was like, "Wait, what?" He was not even kidding. And I was like, oh, see, no, that's going to become an issue. I'm sorry, ladies, if you have broad shoulders, then I guess you're trans now, according to some, schmuck that I talked to at a hockey game. So, yeah, get ready for that one, apparently. But anyway, if you guys want to leave a comment in here, what you guys think about Saagar's breakdown and, how Krystal kind of held him off. And I think that this is just being overblown, but you guys can let me know what you think. Also, so yeah, leave a like. Also, if you have not already done that, it's free. I'm not sure if you guys knew this, but it really costs you nothing to do, and it really helps me out big time. So if you enjoyed this, please leave that like. It really does help me. And if you're not sub, please sub to my channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs sooner than later. So, but either way, I do appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next one.